Hey everyone, the market's closed today, so we wanted to bring you this special edition of the Final Bar talking about how to get organized. Day off, market's closed. Let's focus on how to improve our use of the StockCharts platform. We're going to focus particularly today on the ChartList feature. Now, this is a part of the StockCharts platform. It's really central. It's core to how you use our website, how you manage our charts, how you think about where to focus your time and attention. It's a fantastic way of sifting through all the thousands of charts you could look at to find the ones that are actionable right now. And so we're going to hear from a couple experts in the StockCharts platform to share with you how they have their accounts set up. Grayson Roze, who's our VP of Operations, is one of the best at setting up and configuring charts using his father's methodology, Gaddis Roze. We also have Greg Schnell from Osprey Strategic, who taught me a lot of great tips about how to set up my own platform. And then I will share with you how I use sort of what they have taught me and hopefully what you learned from them, how to actually draw some good conclusions by analyzing the charts in your chart list. So let's get to three great perspectives on how to use the chart list feature on StockCharts.com.
Hi, everyone. Grayson Roze here with StockCharts.com, coming to you today with a little highlight of how I personally organize my chart list. And I've said this many times in the past. Anyone who's talked to me about StockCharts knows chart lists are really the most important feature on StockCharts. Your charts are important, but the way that you save and organize that is even more important. I've built my entire investing and trading process into my chart list. You're going to see that today. So without further ado, let's jump over to the site and take a look. So we are here on the members dashboard. This is really kind of the heart and soul of StockCharts. Now, of course, the best place to see your chart lists is also right here on the members dashboard. Any page around the site, by the way, if you come up to the menu up in the top right corner, hit that Your Chart Lists button. That's going to take you right down to the chart list area on your dashboard. So what we're talking about today is organization. Now, there are a couple little tricks that you can use to actually organize your chart list. You can use a numbering system. You can use a starring system. And what I've done with mine is use those numbers and use those stars and symbols and all of that to actually custom order my chart list. I've grouped my chart lists into some different kind of buckets that I want to stay organized with. So we'll walk through that. We'll show you exactly what I mean right here on the dashboard. First up, you can see that I've actually got my watch list system. I have kind of a three-tiered watch list approach. I have a tier one kind of dump bucket for just stocks and funds and things like that that I've found, things that I've stumbled across. When I'm actually getting serious about something setting up really nicely, I like to move that over into what I call my stalking list. That means, hey, this is really looking pretty. I'm kind of watching this for a potential move. And once something is really ready to go, once I'm actually ready to make a trade on something, I'll move it into the buy list. So I've got those kind of watch lists right up at the top. And the reason that I've done that, you can see that I've actually saved each of these with a star. So they're the only lists here that have just one star. And then I've kind of ordered those by using a naming and numbering system. The reason I've put those right up at the top in my account is that anytime I go to save a new symbol, that tier one watch list is actually the first chart list in the menu when I go to save it. So I like to have those right up at the top. You can see next up, I use another sort of double star system in this case and some numbers to organize what I call my weekly watch list. Now, every Sunday, I sit down for a lengthy portfolio review, market review. I like to really dig into the markets and dig into my portfolios on Sundays when the markets are closed. So that process starts with a series of lists that I look at on a weekly basis. Most of these are a little bit longer term, but you can see that I've actually grouped those right there. I start at the high level with sort of a broad market analysis, going to global equities, US equities, things like that, drilling in on kind of more of a weekly, longer term time frame. Then I do the exact same with my daily list. Now, I do look at these during that Sunday review, but these are also the ones that I look at on a daily basis. I want to keep an eye on what's happening in the markets. So I've got a set of daily lists. You can see it goes down into even things like what's happening with the US sectors, both on a cap weighted basis, kind of that traditional look, and an equal weighted basis. I've also got industry groups in here. So I've got all of those daily review lists that I want to keep an eye on organized and grouped right here. Again, those are 3 stars, and then I use a numbering system to keep them in order. Again, what this numbering and starring system does, just adding those little symbols and some numbers to your chart list names, again, it allows you to custom order your list. Instead of everything just being sort of basic alphabetical order, you can actually control the order of your chart list. You can see that right here. So next up, I get into my positions. I've got what I call my all positions list. You can see that now I've switched over to a plus sign. So I've got an entire chart list dedicated to only the things that I own. These are the daily charts of the things that I own. I've got chart list reports set up on this. So at the end of the day, I get a daily report. At the end of the week, I also get a weekly report sent right to my inbox. But this is one of the most important chart lists in my account, all of the positions that I actively own. Now, I'm a little funky. I split my portfolio kind of mentally into a couple of different buckets, what I call super core, core, and explore. If you've read my book, Tensile Trading, core and explore might be familiar to you. So I take those kind of buckets from that all positions list, that bucket from my portfolio. I've also got weekly lists for that. A couple of retirement options in there for fun as well, 401k options in there. You can see that I use a double plus system for that. And this just keeps on rolling down through all of my chart lists. So I've got other sort of watch lists in here. I've got all of the lists that I use for my scheduled scans. So I have a ton of scans running for new highs across different groups every day. Those scheduled scans fire off and the results get saved right into these lists. So you can see I'm using a dash system to keep those organized. Looking primarily at S&P 1500 stocks making new highs, also ETFs making new highs as well. And that just continues on. You can see then I get down into the numbered lists, which are kind of more broad market analysis, things that are a little more specialized, things I don't look at necessarily on as much of a consistent cadence, but I keep those other lists organized down here with numbers. So hopefully that's given you a sense of how you can organize your chart lists. Again, symbols, numbers, or a combination of the two gives you a lot of control over your chart list, lets you organize them and kind of build your process right into StockCharts. So that is how I organize my chart lists on StockCharts.com.
Hi, I'm Greg Schnell, and I'm here to help you understand the power of the StockCharts chart list function. For me, chart lists are really important. I've been with StockCharts for years, 12 or 13 years, and I have this huge collection of data built up, charts sorted and assembled a certain way to help me stay organized on the markets. And some people focus on different areas. I use the chart list to really help me organize my work and my thoughts, and I hope to share that with you. So with that, let's get into the charts. So to get to our chart lists, the easiest thing from your dashboards is to bang on the big button over here named Chart Lists. When you do that, it's going to jump you down to this list. Now, I have a lot of them. I've got 456. Now, I'll describe why I have so many, and hopefully that will help you a little bit. But a couple of things that we want to work through as we go. First of all, whenever I'm looking at a random chart, I'm not going to go try and find a list to put it in every time. So what I do is I dump all of my charts into one chart list each day. So if somebody, whatever, on TV or on Twitter mentions a chart, maybe they say Tech Resources or Twilio or something, I'm going to go and I'm going to jump into here. And when I look at the chart, I'm going to quickly save it into this chart. Now, the power of doing this is what you'll find is if you set up a recording method for the date, in this case, I've got the year, the month, the day, it will actually sequentially list all the times you've looked at SPY or Bitcoin or whatever your favorite charts are to look at, and keep them sequentially so you can go back and look at them. And you'll also do weekly and daily and intraday timeframes over time. So you'll also see some settings that you might like from before. So I would encourage you to keep a list of random stocks. And I have that list set up here. But what I'd also like to point out is on this list farther down, I've got all of the ones going all the way back from 2016 to 2021. And then I keep two of them up. Oops, sorry. I keep two of them up at the top here. One is from last year and one is from this year. And you can see there's a lot of charts piled into the one last year. Again, the idea behind that is just to allow you to have some place to put random charts when you're annotating them and thinking about them as they're moving. Second thing I would encourage you to do, I have this order process, and a lot of the stuff you'll do is scanning based. And so I have this clean tech theme that I've been following, which was all the electric cars and the charging stations and that kind of stuff, all piled into one. So try to think of your chart list as a theme or an industry or an index. And by numbering these in different ways, you can group them together. So two of the big themes I think are important right now are the clean tech theme and the energy crisis. And what do I mean by that? Well, in the energy crisis, it might be oil and gas, or it might be wind and solar, or it might be copper and aluminum. So you can put all of those charts in there under a different theme, whereas they're coming from different industry groups. Some of the biggest movers in the market are things like FANG. So I would encourage you to just have a chart list of FANG, so you can go and look and see how they're performing and what's going on in those charts on any given day. Now, you might want to make it 20 long with the top 20 or whatever, but you can always do that. The other thing, I have a chart list called Dow 30, and that just quickly lets me go look at the Dow stocks, and it kind of fits on one page. So it gives you a little quicker overview of the markets. I also have some bookmarks set up, which are by index. But in order for those bookmarks to work, you still need to have them set up in a chart list. So again, let's go down to chart lists. And I've got a whole group of charts set up here under what I call the 6000 series. And what I've done is, rather than having a chart list right at the top, I've set these up in the middle. But if somebody says automobiles are starting to move, or aerospace and defense are starting to work, I can quickly go look at a chart. And as part of this group, I've also got all of my indexes. So I could go down here. Here's my Dow 30 industrials. A little farther down here, I've got the NASDAQ 100. Here's natural gas stocks, mortgage finance, lithium names. So whenever you're thinking about charting these individual stocks, I would suggest you try to group them so you can go look and see how all the lithium names are moving, as an example. Something that's more important, though, is how you structure this. So whatever number you put at the front, I use a dash and then the letter that makes me think about the industry group. So rather than calling it whatever, $DJUSAU for automobiles, I'm just putting an I in front, saying integrated oils or industrials or industrial metals. And so I can jump to these stocks quickly. Marijuana was a big theme years ago. Doesn't seem to be a big theme anymore. But anyway, I had those stocks set up so I could quickly go look and see how they're doing. When you're looking at different charts, or there's an industry you like, you can also zoom in and keep charts stored with a different look. So 60-minute or daily or weekly. And again, you'll just list them concurrently here under your industry group, but you'll have them set up so that you can get to them at any time very, very quickly and just see how the group is moving. I find that really, really helpful. So again, this is down at the industry level, but in here I've also got like the NASDAQ 100. Now, when you click on that NASDAQ 100, it's going to show you what's moving in the market on any given day, obviously. But if you bookmark these, you can do this really, really fast and just try to get a feel for where the market's going. You'll see the names of the industry groups that are starting to work. I find that particularly helpful. Now, rolling this out one more time, one of the things so you see all my 60-10, and I just picked a random number so that I wouldn't overwrite it, but I've got the ABC thing going all the way through here. And then you can just quickly jump into the groups you want. Now, again, for all of the different sectors, you can set up a chart list with all of the stocks from those sectors in them very easily, and quickly just jump in and see, what's moving in technology. And you could click on that, and obviously it's going to take you into the chart list, but you can sort by sector, or you can sort by industry group, or sort by scooter ranking really, really quick, just within technology, to see what is moving. So those are really important concepts for me. Now, I also have something else that I do for clients every week, and I apologize for the scrolling. But what I do is I take a chart list, and every week I just make a new one. And so this is quite long. But the idea being, if you look at the same charts over and over and over, you're going to see how the market develops. And you can also go back and check your work and say, how did I miss that big move? Now, let's just go down to currently. So I've got the week of February 10th and the week of February 17th is all I've done is copy this list to this list. And I do that every week. And eventually I'll have to go clean some out because I'll run up against the limit on the number of chart lists I'm allowed. But by doing that, this is my market review. And I work through breadth and then indexes and then bonds and currencies and commodities all within one chart list. But it's the same list every week. But I can go back and see technically what I was thinking about the market on that week when it either broke down or broke out, and go back and check my work. And I do a video each week for clients working through all the charts, really, so they don't have to. So we can focus in on the sectors that are working and the charts that are actually hitting new highs or breaking out of patterns. So the idea of the chart list is to really give you the ability to jump into the market whatever way you want to think about it, either in your regular weekend routine or a daily chart list where you're just checking quickly to see what the indexes are doing. And if I just head over to my Safari browser, here's my indexes tab. And you can just see if I wanted to see the NASDAQ top 100. Again, that's going to take you to that chart list I had before, but it's going to show you all of the stocks in there. So think of chart lists as something that you can bookmark and jump to quickly, or you can just use the stock chart scale based on how you've defined it. One last thing that I'd like to show you in the chart lists. So again, we're going to go to the chart list tab, but we're going to go all the way to the bottom. And what I've done is I've set up some really rare stuff down here. So this is recession watch. And the idea is in this particular group, you want to start to look through and see how, if a recession is developing, there's some charts that should happen, should start to show up. And so as you work through this list of stocks, it can have, again, all kinds of rare stuff in it, but rather than, you're not going to look at this chart when you're in a big bull market, you're going to look at it as the market's rolling over and you're wondering, are we in a recession? Well, now you can just go and you've got all the charts already set up around CPI and wages, etc.
Okay, so we heard from Grayson Roze really about how to set up your chart list. And I love his numbering system using symbols at the top. That's a trick that I've used heavily in getting my own account set up. Then Greg Schnell showed you really how he has his list organized, particularly looking at different groups of stocks. So I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Talking with others like Tom Boley, Art Hill, they were also sort of echoed Greg's comments about focusing on groups of names, groups of ETFs and tickers that are meaningful, and putting them in an appropriate order so that you can get through them on a good routine. Now I want to show you my own login. I'm going to show you how I have my chart list set up, but I really want to focus on how we take those lists and use them, right? What now? Now that you have a really good organized list of charts, how do you start to draw some really good conclusions? Here, let me show you my account. All right, so now we're looking at my StockCharts account. As we scroll down on the dashboard, we're going to get to my chart list. The first thing you will find, probably from all three of us, but especially for me, is I have a lot of chart lists. I remember Greg Schnell was showing you about his all of the scans that he runs, and I like keeping mine on chart lists as well. It's a really good way of thinking about and reflecting on what ideas and what signals you had back in the past, and taking time to go and reflect on that is pretty important. You can see I have a similar methodology to both Grayson and Greg, and then I have the most important things at the top of the list. And if there's one takeaway, I would say from all three of us, it's that, right? The list that you're going to be referring to the most. So for me, it's basically a list of things that I share on social media. You can see I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn quite a bit, sharing charts and just sort of, taking visualizations that I think really tell the story of the market and getting them out there so people can use them as well. My Mindful Investor live chart list is actually a shared chart list that you can access from our articles page. And so I like to keep those updated. And then every 3 days a week on my show, The Final Bar, every day we have a 3 and 3. We have guests 3 days a week. And then every day we do the 3 and 3. So those lists are at the top as well. So the most important list, the ones you're using heavily, put them at the top of the list. From there, I kind of go macro to micro. So I have my broad market checklist where I'm going through sort of the big picture thing. Starts with the weekly flight plan, the monthly chart review, which are chart lists that I manage for my premium members of Market Misbehavior. Then I continue on through some of the big macro things like intermarket analysis, cryptocurrencies, and economic indicators. From there, I get into sectors and industries after I look at breadth and ratios. And then I get to the really good stuff in terms of the chart list, I would say, because these are the meaningful list of stocks. And you'll find that I have a purple haze list. I saw Greg Schnell had a cannabis list, if I remember. I know Grayson does as well, because we've compared notes on some of these groups before. And so having some of those actionable lists that I think are meaningful to pay attention to are really, really helpful. I like to look at the fund families as well. So I have the ARK funds as a list and also the iShares ETFs. Those are two that I refer to often. iShares in particular, because it's a pretty diverse list of ETFs that cover a lot of different asset classes and different ideas and different themes. And so looking and reflecting on which ones are stronger and which ones are weaker within a group like that is really, really helpful. At the end of the chart list are where I have things like positions that I own and actionable ideas that I'm putting into play in some way. And I think that reflects sort of my general routine, which is start with the big picture, reflect on what the markets are telling you, and then think about how you're positioned. So I would strongly encourage you to put things like your brokerage account, your portfolios, your client accounts, whatever list that you're managing on StockCharts that involve particular holdings. I would put them more toward the end of your list. And then from there, I get into a lot of random things. And I like saving lists that people send me. I like running scans and saving them with the dates that I can go back at some point and just see how did the stocks that we're breaking down or breaking up actually do at some particular time. Now let's take a list of stocks. And one of the things that I actually do often is I have this list right here called the S&P by sector and industry. This is a list about once a month. I just refresh this to make sure it captures any changes in the indexes. But this is a list that I actually review every weekend. And I go through all 500 of these charts and just make notes on what I'm seeing. And it's a really good routine to get into. And what I'd like to talk about here with the rest of my time is just how we take these lists that hopefully are very well organized and set up and what you actually do with them, because that's the real power of the StockCharts platform. So for me, it starts on what's called the summary tab. So if you go to your chart list and pick one of them, it gets to this page where you're actually looking at a summary of all of the constituents in the chart list and then some data about each of those tickers. Now, at the top, you can change. So we're going to talk about the summary list here, and then we're going to talk about two other views as well, a candle glance view and then the chart list view. And I think these are really three views that I use every day to try to analyze a list of charts pretty effectively. Now, this is how my chart list is going to default. And again, I'm looking at the S&P 500 members. I have this organized. So if you click on columns, I'm going to bring in sector and industry. And you'll see how I have it organized. What I do is once I run the chart list, I click on the industry tab first, and then on the sector tab. And what that basically does is it sorts first on the industry and then sorts the industries within their sectors, which means every week I start with Charter Communications, which is the first stock in the entertainment group within the communication services sector. So alphabetically on our platform, those are the top of the list. So I always start with Charter. That's sort of like the starting point. Then we get through the rest of communication services like the internet names, and then we get into consumer discretionary, and you kind of go down visually this way. This is how I have the chart list set up. I group it by industry and by sector, and I do that for pretty much any group of stocks that has a diverse list, right? Things in different sectors, because I find that it's really helpful to group the sectors and the groups together, because often the names in a particular group will move the same, right? Auto parts stocks or life sciences names or media names will tend to move together, right? They'll have very similar movements, not all the time, but usually. So thinking of them as themes and as companies within this group, within this sector, I think is a great way to sort of, have a hierarchy to how you're thinking about any list of stocks in particular. Now, the real benefit of this summary tab is to be able to sort the list on a lot of different things. And if you click on the columns tab, you see you have a bunch of things you can actually bring in to display and sort and analyze for these different items. So what's helpful for me, I would say, is a couple different things. And I'm bringing in some of the different columns that I like to have on here. And I actually switch them around quite a bit, just depending on what questions I'm trying to ask. So I've brought in a couple columns a little bit newer. So things like RSI, when they're reporting earnings next, the PE ratio. And those are a couple really meaningful columns we'll get to. But I'll tell you what I do to start with. When I'm looking at any list of stocks, I usually sort it by market cap and look at the biggest names, because if I'm looking at an index or if I'm looking at a particular group that has structure, right, the members of an ETF or something like that, the biggest names often have the biggest weights because most things are cap weighted, meaning an Apple or a Microsoft or an Alphabet is going to dwarf a lot of the smaller names that are probably in that same group. So sorting it by market cap and starting with the biggest names is often a really good place to start. The next thing I like to do is look at the scooter rankings, right, and sort them in descending order based on the StockCharts technical ranking. Now, this is a proprietary methodology looking at long-term, medium, and short-term all aggregated into one composite score. So I can see that out of the S&P 500, the top-ranked stock is Royal Caribbean RCL. What's helpful also is looking at the little preview charts. You can see what's going on with each one of these names. So I often will sort it by the scooter rankings and then look at the little preview charts just to see if there's a recent movement that I want to jump into and dig into a little further. Obviously, of course, you can sort it the other way, and you can see that Lumen Technologies, the worst performing name based on our scooter rankings in a consistent downtrend. There's a bunch of things in the middle, but focusing on those names at the top and the bottom of the list can be helpful. RSI is actually a component of the scooter rankings, but it's a little more short-term, medium-term, if you know about the methodology of the indicator. So once I look at the longer-term scores using the scooter rankings, I then use the RSI to see what's moving more in the short term. And I can see that things like West Pharmaceuticals, which gapped higher this week, Analog Devices, Catalent, these are all stocks in the last week or so have had big moves to the upside. As a result, the RSI is overbought, over 70. So focusing on the names of my list where the stocks or ETFs are overbought, also the ones that are oversold below 30 can often indicate a bit of a mean reversion play. Things that have come down quite a bit like DVN or Johnson & Johnson, are they ripe for a counter trend move to the upside? Also super helpful for looking at earnings. You can see when these companies are going to be reporting earnings within a list of stocks. You can start to plan ahead for the next week, particularly if you have a portfolio. This is a really good way of just knowing when there's a potential catalyst that you may want to be aware of and preparing for. Second thing I'll show you is what we call the ChartList view. And this is something I use all the time. And this is taking a list of things and then just putting them in a place where you can start taking the mouse and just flicking up. And what I'm doing is I'm literally looking at a big, long list of charts, but I'm just scrolling up gently one to the next. And I usually have a piece of paper where I'm jotting down tickers and ideas. So I know over the last week when I've been reviewing this series, Fox has been a nice performer to the upside, breaking above moving averages, which are now starting to slope higher. By looking at this same list of charts every week, it was really easy to track the rotation, the higher low, and then the move to the upside. So the ChartList view is a really good way of taking a list, putting it in a meaningful order on that summary tab, and then analyzing them in order of priority. The last thing is the candle glance function. This is something I use all the time. Back in my days at Fidelity, we used to take a bunch of charts and throw them out, print them out, and put them out on a table to see what looked similar to what else on the page. This is what you're able to do now on in a technological forward methodology, right? Putting the charts up on your screen all at once, being able to look and see which ones are outliers, which ones look the same, which ones look different, which ones are breaking out, which ones are breaking down, and then drill in to actually analyze those particular charts. So that's how I have my chart list set up. I like to focus on keeping them in a meaningful order and then focusing on 3 particular tools to actually make good decisions using my chart list. Looking at the summary view to think about how to rank and sort the names. Looking at the chart list to actually go through one by one and focus on key patterns, and then using the candle glance feature to really appreciate and compare and contrast the different charts in my lists. That's it for this special event, focusing on the chart list feature of StockCharts.com. Special thanks to Grayson Roze and Greg Schnell for showing us a behind-the-scenes look at how they use their own StockCharts account. For StockCharts in Redmond, Washington, I'm Dave Keller. Be well, stay safe. We'll see you again soon.
Hey, Grayson Roze here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.